Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. So this week things are a little slower in the market as players wait for Brothers War preview season to begin. There's a lot of cards still moving between $1 and $2, but in many cases those moves felt more like an overall market adjustment this week. The threshold for today's video will continue to be $2, but there's still a lot to look at this week. Some of the key cards from Warhammer 40K are heating up, and there's a lot of other things happening in the market too. Quickly before we get into the details though, just a fast reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pre-order the Brothers War products there. They have everything you see on the screen. They even have cases if you're looking to pick up cases of booster boxes. And they have a whole lot of other things on their website too. Remember, if your order's over $100 or consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the Heroes promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated, so thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. No standard legal spotlight this week. All the cards in the standard legal world are pretty stable. Makes sense though. We saw a few previews from the Brothers War, but of course the full preview season is starting soon, and players want to wait and see what's going on before they start buying cards. So we begin with the Pioneer legal spotlight. This is where we see the Pioneer cards moving the most this week, a couple going down, some going up. First, we have Indomitable Creativity down 302 to 29.94. Not too surprising, this card has been spiking pretty aggressively recently. It was due to start to see at least a little bit of retraction, and that's what's happening here. So the reason it's been hot is because it's getting a lot of play. In Pioneer, it's in Temur and Izzet Indomitable Creativity builds. The Temur one in particular has been performing well and gaining momentum. Modern, though, is really what's been moving the card. Yorion Sky Nomad was banned there last week, and the already popular Indomitable Creativity build started to take a bigger share of the meta. Additionally, this card does see a little commander play in various decks too. Next, we have the Meathug Massacre, the Innistrad Midnight Hunt copy down $6.31 to $50. The Innistrad double feature copy down $10.64 to $87.36. Now, that double feature copy is still inflated due to the fact that there's not a lot of copies out there online for sale right now, and they do have high asking prices. That one is coming down faster, technically, than the Midnight Hunt copy, but again, nobody's really paying that price for it right now. The reason it became so cold is because last week it was banned in Standard, but it does see play in other places. In Pioneer, you see this in Mono Black Devotion, sometimes Rakdos Sacrifice. This is now seeing increased commander play and builds around some Dominaria United cards too. Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Braid's Arisen Nightmare, Ellis Ilkor Sadistic Pilgrim. Some are also picking this up to upgrade the Dominaria United Legends Legacy commander deck, while others are adding it to fresh builds around a card from there, the Hada Binder of Wills. First card moving up is Chromatic Orrery. This is up 236 this week to 2606, and it is getting some increased commander play thanks to Dominaria United and Warhammer 40K. First off, it's in many Joda the Unifier builds in Commander. It's also a good upgrade to the Dominaria United Painbow deck and the Warhammer 40K Necron Dynasties deck. Plus, it's in fresh Commander builds around Jared Carthalion from Painbow and Trazyn the Infinite from Necron Dynasties. In fact, this was mentioned as a card you might want to play with Trazyn on an episode of the Command Zone podcast this week. Could have brought some more attention to it. Rakdos Lord of Riots. This is the one from the Ravnica Allegiance Rakdos Guild Kit. This copy only comes in foil. It goes up $4.98 this week to $11.59. Demons are hot right now because one of the Warhammer 40k commander decks has a demon sub-theme, and the new demon support is giving the tribe a push in commander. The deck is called the Ruinous Powers, and many players are picking this up to upgrade that deck, or add it to fresh builds around Be'lakor the Dark Master, and to a lesser degree, Abaddon the Despoiler. Next is Orvar the Allform. The Kaldheim copies of $6.31 to $14.99. The one from the list is up $11.99 to $16.99. It was in the list for Modern Horizons 2 and Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Now, the main reason it's this hot is because you are starting to see this show up in some modern sideboards like Jeskai Stoneblade, for example, since it is good against Archon of Cruelty in those Indomitable Creativity builds that we discussed earlier. Like I said, those decks were popular, but with the banning of Yorion, they're getting even more play. Orvar, though, has also been a popular commander ever since it came out. Now it's seeing more commander play in the 99 of some new builds. Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief being the most popular, This is another good upgrade to the Ruinous Powers deck. Plus, it's in fresh builds around Be'lakor the Dark Master and Magnus the Red from there. Additionally, I've seen some use this as an upgrade to another Warhammer 40K deck. Forces of the Imperium also appears in new commander builds around a card from there, Marneus Kelgar. And our last card in this section is Renata Called to the Hunt. This goes up to 1821 this week to 3781, but this is the copy from the list that was only there for Strixhaven, and in reality, this price is very inflated. So the reason we see this is because there's just not a lot of sales data around this card. There's not copies that are being sold, at least not very many. And there's simply not many copies for sale either. The ones that are up there right now online have very high asking prices. That throws off the data. That's why you see weird spikes like this sometimes. This is really something I more wanted to point out for educational purposes than anything. Now, you can get the original copy of this card for just a few cents if you want to play with it. And you might want to because it's not a bad card. It's a good upgrade, as a matter of fact, to a Warhammer 40K commander deck, Tyranid Swarm, also showing up in fresh builds around the Swarm Lord from there. And that quickly takes us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. We have some cards moving down, then some moving up. First one moving down is Thrumming Stone. This is the copy from the list. It goes down 279 this week to 3308. This was in the list for Zendikar Rising at Kaldheim. The reason it's been losing value recently, though, is because it was reprinted in Double Masters 2022. This does get commander play, along with cards that can break the deck limitation rules, like Dragon's Approach, for example. And I have seen this along with copies of that card in some versions of a new commander build around a Dominaria United box topper, Torwoki the Younger. You also see some adding that strategy to one of the Warhammer 40K commander decks, the Ruinous Powers, or putting it in new builds from scratch around Abaddon the Despoiler from there. Denizen of the Deep. This is the copy from Portal 2nd Age and Theory going down 318 to 1368. This copy has been very turbulent and the price is inflated due to scarcity online. No one is really paying this for the card. Again, you can get other copies for just a few cents, although it doesn't really get much play to speak of. Cezanne, Perverter of Truth. This is down $363 this week to $35, and it is retracting after some recent spikes. The reason the card got so hot to begin with was because many were picking it up for their Sheoldred the Apocalypse commander builds when Dominaria United came out. Not too unusual once the hype kind of passes to see cards like this begin to settle back down again. Greater Oromancy is next. It goes down $397 this week to $48.99. This isn't seeing as much play as it did a few months ago when there was a lot of enchantment support coming out, but it can still show up in some enchantment-heavy commander builds like Zur the Enchanter, for example. Endurance is down $463 this week to $42.79. This is still seeing a good amount of modern play, but it is getting less play there now due to the meta changes that came along with the banning of Yorion Sky Nomad last week. This was in some builds with Yorion, like the Omnith Locus of Creation decks and Crashing Footfalls, but it's also in builds that are still hanging around doing well. Amulet Titan, Yawgmoth, and more. This is also getting a lot of legacy play. It's in Selesnya Depths, Elves, and more there. Vintage, it's in Temur Control, Hogak Vine, and it's in a number of different commander builds too. Last card moving down today is Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, the copy from Modern Masters 2015. It goes down $676 to $37.19. This was in the list for Strixhaven and Modern Horizons 2, but the reason it's moving down, and has been moving down for a while now, is because it was reprinted in Double Masters 2022. In Modern, this is in Mono Blue Tron, Dice Factory Tron. It's also a solid commander card in lots of decks, including Kozilek the Great Distortion. It is also a solid upgrade to the Legends Legacy build, and I have seen this in new decks around the Peregrine Dynamo from there as well. Plus, it's also in some Sheoldred the Apocalypse commander decks too. We only have one card moving up in this section today. It is Grinding Station. It goes up $535 this week to $30. This is found in those modern Izzet and Jeskai Breach builds, and those have been performing very well in the format. Those are more decks that are seeing a larger share of the modern meta now that Yorion has been banned. Plus, this is getting more commander play as well. It's in Muria, Scholar of Antiquity builds. It's a card from Dominaria United. It's a good upgrade to the Warhammer 40K commander deck Necron Dynasties, and I've seen it in new builds around a couple cards from there. Trazyn the Infinite, and Imhotep the Stormlord. This was also in an Ikra Shadiki the Usurper, and Rograk, Son of Roga competitive commander deck that was on a Shuffle Up and Play episode on Tolarian Community College's YouTube channel this week. Could have brought a little more attention to this. That brings us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Legacy, Vintage, or cards that are just popular among collectors this week. Prices in this section may at times be a little more reminiscent of what you might see on a price tracking website, since some of the cards do not get many sales in any given week, and that means in those cases, we do have to lean a little bit harder on asking price to get the data. Also, for some of the older, more iconic Magic cards, the price you see might fall somewhere in between the price of a high-grade raw and high-grade graded copy of the card. But if the price on the screen isn't at least close to the middle for those two types of cards, or just in general, if the price is not close to what I'm seeing when it comes to recent sales, I will point that out. The Ruinous Powers deck brings us our first card. This is Poxwalkers. It goes up 226 this week to 920. As you can imagine, it is seeing play in fresh commander builds around a couple cards from there. Abaddon the Despoiler and Be'lakor the Dark Master. This, however, is starting to show up in some Legacy Lion's Eye Diamond Dredge builds. I've seen 3 copies of this in some of those decks. We'll have to see if that sticks, but some Legacy players and speculators are already showing interest in the card because of that. Next is Tolarian Academy up 236 this week to 126.76. This is in Vintage 4-Color Tinker, Prison Shops, and more. Alright, this mountain's back again. Not any mountain, though. It is the one you see on the screen from Battle Royale. Going up 450 this week to 1958, at least in theory. Now, we talked about this card last week. It was moving up then, too. We see this happen on occasion. Sometimes someone will decide to grab a bunch of copies of a particular hard-to-find basic land from the online marketplace. When that happens, they all just disappear at the same time, leaving the more expensive copies for sale. And because you don't have a lot of sales data around this card, and because the remaining copies have high asking prices, you get this artificial inflation. I don't think anybody spending $19, $20 for this mountain as more copies return to the marketplace. This will stabilize back down again. We've seen it happen quite a bit. This particular mountain, though, has been especially turbulent, so I do think there's been maybe some copycat buyouts that have occurred after the fact. Typically, though, when somebody does decide to target one of these older basic lands, they're usually white border lands. Some players do prefer those because they stand out when you fetch. Mana Crypt, we haven't seen this in a little while. The original media promo book giveaway copy is up 682 to 344.90. The Eternal Masters copy is up 735 to 199.99. Few things to know about this card. First off, Wizards did sell some more Mystery Booster Convention Edition boxes recently as a part of a Secret Lair bundle called Festival in a Box. So this was included in Mystery Booster. You might see some more copies of these hitting the marketplace soon. When it comes to gameplay, in Vintage, this is in 4-Color Tinker, Prison Shops, and more. And it's in lots of commander decks, including new ones like Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Additionally, this is a good upgrade to some of the Warhammer 40K commander decks. I've seen people putting this in Forces of the Imperium and Necron Dynasties. You also see this in fresh builds around Marneus Kulgar from Forces of the Imperium and Trazyn the Infinite from Necron Dynasties. But another reason that this is moving up the way it is right now is because it is a good upgrade to the Heads I Win, Tails You Lose Secret Lair commander deck. And according to Wizards, those are finally shipping this week. So maybe some people put off picking this card up to the last minute. And it also got some more exposure this week too, being in all 4 of those competitive commander decks featured in the Shuffle Up and Play episode on Tolarian Community College, which I mentioned earlier. Next, we have an unlimited card. It is Sunglasses of Urza. This one goes up $11.01 to $90.98 this week. Sandals of Abdullah. This goes up $11.08 to $107.32. Nightmare from Unlimited up $14.91 to $52.82. Brain Geyser from Unlimited up $53 to $2.99. Now, I have seen high-grade raw copies of this sell for about this price. I have not seen any high-grade graded copies sell for a while, but when one does, it will go for more. Howling Mind from Unlimited is our last card in this section. It goes up $156.01 to $274.80. Is that for real, though? Well, in reality, this is inflated. I have seen high-grade raw copies of this get to around $110. I have not seen any high-grade graded copies sell for a while, but one would have to be very high-grade to approach this price. And that brings us to the Commander Spotlight. So all the cards in this section are moving, at least in part because of Commander, although there could be other factors as well. In fact, in some cases, Commander might not even be the key driver, but I'll let you know as we go through. First card is Norwood Priestess. It goes up $288 this week to $122.19. This is an older card yet to be reprinted. It does get a tad bit of Commander play in a few different builds. Helm of Obedience up $335 to $64.99. You used to see this in Legacy from time to time, and it can still pop up here or there in the format, but I really couldn't find any recent deck lists running it, so I just put it in this section. I have, however, seen some adding this as an upgrade to the Necron Dynasty's Warhammer 40K commander deck. and it's also in some fresh builds around Trazen the Infinite from there. Some more artificial inflation. This kind of happens more often when the market's slower. Bone Harvest, this is the copy from Beatdown. It goes up $3.75 this week to $6.49. Again, nobody's really paying this price. You can get the original copy for just a few cents. It is found in a few commander builds, including Grist the Hunger Tide. Reign of Daggers up $6.30 to $58.20. An older card yet to be reprinted. It does get a little commander play, but again, this recent increase looks like it's more due to scarcity online currently than anything. The copies that are for sale just have very high asking prices, even though it appears nobody's willing to pay those prices again. Okay, these last three cards are all from Warhammer 40K decks. This is Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch. It goes up $8.18 to $11.99. The Ruinous Powers deck is where you're going to find this one. It's in fresh builds around a number of cards from there. Abaddon the Despoiler, Be'lakor the Dark Master, and Magnus the Red. But I've also seen some using this to upgrade another Warhammer 40K commander deck, Tyrannid Swarm. Plus, it's being added to fresh builds around a card from there, Gyerson Starn Kellermorph. Additionally, you see this now in some commander builds around an Eternal Eagle card from Infinity, Myra the Magnificent. Just in general, though, this is shaping up to be a solid commander card already appearing in a lot of builds old and new. Shadow in the Warp is up $9.66 this week to $18.63. Here's another Warhammer 40K card that is already seeing play in a number of different commander builds. You'll find this one in Tyrannid Swarm, and it is seeing play in new builds around a couple cards from there, the Swarm Lord and Magus Lucia Kane. It was also featured, though, in a Command Zone podcast episode this week, talking about the best cards from Warhammer 40K. And the last card is one we looked at last week, too. It is Bloodthirster, up $15.45 to $25.49. The Ruinous Powers is bringing us this card, too. It's in fresh builds around Be'lakor the Dark Master, Abaddon the Despoiler, and Magnus the Red from there as well. Just generally, though, this is another solid card showing up in other commander decks, too. I've also seen some players using this to upgrade Tyrannid Swarm, or just adding it in fresh builds around the Red Terror from there. Again, this week, I don't have a premium spotlight for you. I just couldn't find anything that really stood out to discuss. Again, overall, the market is a little slower this week in general. There's always cards spiking and dipping in the premium market. But as you know, I like to pick out things that feel like their movement is going to be stable and perhaps actually stick. I was hoping to look at the Infinity Shocklands this week because they were just spiking pretty aggressively last week. This week, many are dropping pretty aggressively, so they're just trying to find their price point. We'll have to see where they settle in the end. But anyway, I'm sure there'll be some premium cards to talk about next week. Until next time, though, hey, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.